The assumption persists that artisanal sweets originated in upscale retail confectionaries. Decades before gourmet sugar became a commercial commodity, rural farmhouse kitchens produced highly engineered treats. Number 21 is pure kitchen chemistry that shatters like silica glass. Number 12 kept children completely silent through the longest Sunday church services. And number 4 was an exclusive alcoholic confection that parents secured on the top shelf. Some formulations are simple, some carry thermal dangers, and all prove that mountain ingenuity required nothing more than a cast-iron skillet. This record documents 25 forgotten rural candies that historical memory erased. Number 25. Honeycomb candy. Before commercial toffee shops existed, mountain families engineered complex structures right in their own kitchens, using just sugar, corn syrup, and baking soda. The women executing these recipes operated effectively as domestic chemists. The physical reaction occurred when the baking soda was introduced at a highly specific thermal threshold. The entire mixture foamed rapidly like a laboratory experiment, generating thousands of microscopic air bubbles that gave this candy its signature structural crunch. When it cooled into a golden slab, the maker fractured it into jagged pieces with a standard butter knife. The texture was highly unusual, shatteringly crisp on the exterior, immediately dissolving into sugary foam upon contact with saliva. Children referred to it as volcano candy because observing the rapid expansion was the primary appeal. Any failure in temperature control resulted in a dense, impenetrable brick. Success meant the maker possessed a fundamental grasp of carbohydrate chemistry. Number 24. Skillet sugar glass candy. This candy production functioned as a visible display of thermal dynamics. Formulated in the exact cast iron skillets used to fry chicken and bake cornbread on a daily basis. The cook melted white sugar with a minimal volume of water to achieve dissolution, then applied medium heat without any physical agitation. This isolation from physical disturbance was mandatory. Any stirring caused the mixture to instantly crystallize into a useless, grainy compound. As the water evaporated, the core temperature escalated, and the sugar transformed into a clear liquid indistinguishable from molten glass. When it reached the hard crack stage at roughly 300 degrees, it was poured flat, creating a thin sheet of pure translucent sugar. As it lost heat, the slab fractured naturally into sharp shards that mimicked broken glass. The translucent material captured the attention of children immediately. Light passed directly through the matrix, and it shattered under pressure with a sharp, satisfying acoustic snap. Executing these specific formulations demanded complete manual control. There were no digital thermometers or precise mechanical timers installed in these rural American kitchens. The individuals operating those wood and gas stoves relied on tactile assessment methods now absent from modern culinary environments. They analyzed heat not as a sterile metric on a digital display, but as a living, volatile physical behavior. To determine if boiling sugar had reached the necessary thermal stage, a grandmother simply dropped a fraction of the molten syrup into a cup of cold water. By compressing the material between her fingers and analyzing the resistance and geometry of the resulting sphere, she calculated the exact state of the boiling mass. This represented profound domestic engineering, a physical interaction with raw ingredients, requiring absolute presence, sustained patience, and empirical intuition. During the 1970s, this generational transfer of technical information ceased. The mass introduction of industrially processed foods and prepackaged commercial sweets altered more than dietary habits. It actively severed the transmission of these practical skills. The intimate technique of analyzing sugar temperatures via touch and visual inspection systematically degraded. Sensory analysis of raw ingredients was exchanged for the immediate convenience of commercial wrappers, eliminating a highly refined system of applied physics. Number 23. Mary Jane candy. These molasses and peanut butter combinations required extensive physical mastication, separating the patient consumers from the impulsive ones. Retailed for exactly 1 penny at every rural country store, they remained accessible to even the poorest agricultural families. However, consuming them demanded a calculated strategy. The candy structure was incredibly dense, forming a compound that adhered to human enamel with the tenacity of industrial wood glue. A single bite effectively immobilized the jaws for a minimum of 5 uninterrupted minutes. For rural mothers, this structural density was not a design flaw, it was a strategic behavioral tool. These candies provided the ultimate solution for enduring long church services throughout the Bible Belt. Enforcing absolute silence upon restless children, the physical act of chewing shifted into a meditative mechanical exercise, gradually breaking down the dark, slightly bitter molasses profile. Number 22. Sunday Sugar Pulls. This sugar production functioned as a binding community ritual rather than simple culinary prep. On Sunday afternoons, following church attendance and the midday meal, families boiled a precise ratio of white sugar, vinegar, butter, and water. Once the thermal mass cooled enough to prevent tissue damage, the entire household gathered to pull the warm material. Adults and children alike lubricated their hands with butter, stretching and folding the translucent amber compound until aeration turned it opaque and pale. For young courting couples, manipulating the same batch of candy provided a socially acceptable justification for physical proximity. Their hands operated in tandem, occasionally making contact as they synchronized their mechanical pulling rhythm. The final edible product was almost secondary to the process. The objective was the comfortable assembly of the extended family unit, utilizing shared physical labor to transform basic agricultural staples into an afternoon of social cohesion before the Monday work cycle resumed. Number 19. Soft Maple Roll Candy. In geographic zones supporting dense maple forests, this represented seasonal survival, operating at peak efficiency. Production occurred exclusively in late winter and early spring, tracking the exact window when families tapped their local trees and boiled down the raw sap. The maker heated pure maple syrup to the softball thermal stage without incorporating a single supplementary ingredient. The material was then subjected to continuous mechanical beating as it cooled. The phase shift was severe and immediate. The liquid amber syrup mutated into an opaque tan cream that maintained its physical shape while remaining soft and highly aerated. This process proved that a comprehensive inventory of retail goods was unnecessary for those who understood how to manipulate biological forest resources. Number 18. Maple Nut Goodies. This specific confection encoded the Appalachian agricultural calendar into a single, localized bite. The formula combined syrup preserved from the spring maple extraction with the scattered nuts harvested during the autumn months. Black walnuts served as the traditional mountain additive, delivering a robust, highly tannic chemical profile that effectively neutralized the aggressive maple sweetness. The process utilized the exact same maple cream baseline, boiling pure syrup to the softball stage and aerating it until the viscosity thickened. While the matrix remained pliable and hot, the chopped nuts were folded into the suspension. Hickory nuts or standard pecans provided adequate fat content, but the black walnuts injected a deep, earthy complexity. The final product delivered the combined chemical profiles of the forest and the farm, documenting a specific era when families extracted their sugar directly from the surrounding timberline. The methodology behind these formulations did not disappear through organic attrition. As the 1970s drew more populations into urban centers with dual-income households, the architectural structure of the American family fundamentally fractured. Sunday schedules transitioned away from church and extended family assemblies, causing those crucial communication networks to collapse. Simultaneously, the commercial convenience food sector deployed a highly effective alternative to hours spent monitoring volatile thermal reactions. Ingredients that were historically harvested from the immediate backyard transitioned into high-cost retail commodities. Pure maple syrup was reclassified as an expensive, bottled luxury, instantly converting homemade maple candy from a thrifty survival tactic into an extravagant financial liability. These rural domestic traditions were rapidly displaced by cheaper, factory-extruded alternatives. Procuring commercial sugar simply outpaced the efficiency of domestic manufacturing. The profound mechanical satisfaction of kitchen craftsmanship was permanently exchanged for brightly colored industrial packaging, quietly surrendering regional culinary sovereignty to the mass convenience sector. Number 11. Candy cigarettes. Inside any rural retail outlet during the 1970s, These white sugar cylinders were displayed in uniform rows, complete with artificial red tips, simulating active combustion. For Appalachian children raised in environments where male relatives uniformly consumed tobacco, these rigid sugar sticks offered direct participation in adult behaviors. The manufacturers packaged them in miniature flip-top boxes, engineered to exactly replicate commercial Marlboros or Lucky Strikes. Children routinely tapped the cardboard packaging against their palms to mimic observed adult motor functions. The edible material consisted of pure, highly compressed sugar, delivering a chalky, sweet profile. Priced at exactly 5 cents per unit, the low economic barrier allowed even the youngest demographics to purchase their own independence. In rural sectors where heavy tobacco consumption was the unquestioned baseline, this product was universally categorized as harmless behavioral simulation. Number 4. Bourbon balls. This item occupied the strictly restricted adult perimeter of the holiday candy dish, operating as a festive confection carrying a distinct chemical warning. Originating deep within the Kentucky bourbon distillation culture, they secured a permanent position in 1970s holiday events and were absolutely prohibited for minors. The assembly mechanics were highly efficient. The maker pulverized an entire commercial box of vanilla wafers into fine particulate matter, binding it with powdered sugar, raw cocoa powder, chopped pecans, heavy corn syrup, and a massive volumetric dose of high-proof Kentucky bourbon. This dark, highly volatile dough was manually compressed into uniform 1-inch spheres. The initial bite released an intense cocoa profile, followed immediately by the structural crunch of raw pecans, and terminating in the unmistakable thermal burn of ethyl alcohol saturating the tongue. These units were deployed exclusively on designated serving plates that remained hidden until the juvenile population was secured for the night. Number 2. Panuch. Eliminating the false assumption that rural cooking lacked technical refinement exposes this brown sugar fudge, a compound that forcefully separated amateur cooks from precision domestic engineers. Across Midwest and New England kitchens throughout the 1970s, this formula represented the absolute apex of holiday thermal manipulation. It demanded relentless, unforgiving technical precision. Missing the required thermal target by a margin of just 5 degrees guaranteed either a crystallized disaster or a permanently liquefied failure. Mothers agitated the boiling mixture continuously until it struck exactly 238 degrees Fahrenheit, the precise parameters for the softball stage. The subsequent thermal phase required agonizing discipline. The mass had to cool in a state of absolute physical isolation until the core temperature registered exactly 110 degrees. Only then was it subjected to merciless mechanical beating with a rigid wooden spoon. This was high-level chemical engineering presented as a baked good, routinely securing the highest honors at local church sales. Number 1. Homemade nougat. This highly ambitious project proved that isolated domestic cooks could construct architecture identical to commercial factory output. Dedicated confectioners approached this formula as the ultimate test of their holiday engineering capabilities. The execution required a breathless, highly choreographed sequence of thermal manipulation. The protocol demanded 2 independent sugar syrups boiling simultaneously to drastically divergent temperatures. One locked exactly at 250 degrees, while the secondary mass pushed toward a highly dangerous 320 degrees. These volatile liquids were merged with beaten egg whites and raw honey under constant, violent agitation. The maker then rapidly folded toasted nuts into the rapidly cooling matrix. These women were not randomly combining sucrose. They were executing complex thermal engineering to erect flawless, edible architecture. These forgotten formulas extended far beyond basic carbohydrate processing. They demonstrated the fundamental Appalachian principle of total resource maximization. The makers extracted raw, inexpensive materials and synthesized them into units of extreme psychological value during periods when capital was terrifyingly scarce and morale required immediate reinforcement. These rural women operated without laboratory equipment. They relied on physical endurance, empirical intuition, and an astonishing capacity to manufacture joy from absolute baseline elements. This was the specific mechanism an entire generation utilized to distribute emotional support within severe economic constraints. Subscribing to this channel ensures these historical records of domestic engineering are permanently preserved.